Hi everyone. Chapter 15, The Coming of the Sharkworms. As the long night wore on, something strange and frightening was happening in the seas around Fort Sinister. The rain poured down without stopping, and for several days the heated swimming baths of the Fat Consul had been overflowing, sending a stream of hot water pouring down the hillside and into the ocean. And this warm current was attracting some unwelcome visitors, sharkworms. From far and wide the sharkworms came, terrible creatures, half out of nightmares, but only too true, I'm afraid, propelled not only by the tremendous force of a shark-like tail, but also by thick, muscly alligator legs that poured through the water, sending them forward at extraordinary speeds. They were swimming towards the Roman fortress, not just in ones and twos, but in tens of thousands. And when the sun came up on the morning before Saturn's Day Saturday, there was a boiling mass of black fins with jagged edges, circling like vultures around the island of Fort Sinister. It was as if they were waiting for something. I'll read that again. It was as if they were waiting for something. Sharkworms are ancient animals, and their brains were formed in who knows what dark and terrible furnace. They knew not why they waited, only that they smelled warm water and blood yet to be spilled, and guts in the offing, and trouble about to happen. And so they waited patiently and greedily, waiting and waiting and waiting for some awful event to unfold in the future that would bring them their supper. Chapter 16. The Cunning but Desperate Plan. Kamikaze returned the day before Saturday. She was not as cheerful as usual. She drooped around the cell, sighing. Even Fishlegs was worried. Kamikaze Cam came and sat next to Hiccup beside the barred window. "Oh, maybe," she said sadly. "Maybe you can keep a bog burglar under lock and key. I don't understand it. I'm the master escaper. No prison can hold me." "Well, the Romans make good prisons," replied Hiccup. "Well, the only good Roman is a dead Roman," said Kamikaze. Hiccup sighed. "That isn't true. I'm sure there are loads of good Romans. But all the good Romans are probably quietly minding their own business back in Rome. Anyway, Alvin isn't a Roman. He's a Viking just like us." "Your father really isn't going to send a war party, you know, Hiccup," said Kamikaze gently. Hiccup looked out of the window. Kamikaze was right. His father wasn't coming. Maybe he thought that Hiccup wasn't worth it. "Okay," said Hiccup, trying to keep them from despairing. "I think it's time we made another plan." "I know what we do," cried Kamikaze, drawing her sword, with her old swagger back again. "We practice our sword fighting. We die, yes, but we die in style." "No," said Hiccup. "But you're a great sword fighter." "For a boy, of course," said Kamikaze, disappointed. "I only sword fight when there's a point to it," said Hiccup. "No, this is the plan. I have this dragon called Zygarastica who owes me a favour." "Ooh, Zygarastica, he sounds scary," said Kamikaze. "Do you think he can help us?" "I don't know," Hiccup admitted. Hiccup felt a bit silly shouting to someone who wasn't in the room, but he did so nonetheless, calling Zygarastica 3 times at the top of his voice. "How's this dragon going to get in here when we can't get out?" asked Kamikaze. "You'll see," said Hiccup. Nothing happened for about 3 hours. Hiccup wasn't really expecting this plan to work. In his heart of hearts, he was just trying to cheer Kamikaze up. But then there was a faint rustling noise, and the tiny black and red dragon squeezed through the double bars and fluttered around the room. "Don't tell me," said Kamikaze. "Please, don't tell me that this is the dragon who owes you the favour." "Yep," said Hiccup in astonishment. "Yep, that's definitely him." "How amazing that he came when I called." "This dragon said Fishlegs, is even smaller than Toothless. That's really going to help us, isn't it? The entire Roman army is going to be shivering in its shoes when it sets eyes on a dragon the size of a bumblebee. How can a dragon, not much larger than a beetle, help us fight a whole Roman legion? Well, what were you expecting? Asked Hiccup. A sea dragonus giganticus maximus? Hang on, Toothless, what are you doing? Toothless was stalking Zigarastica like a cat following a mouse. Toothless, stop, yelled Hiccup. You mustn't eat him. He's our only chance of getting out of here alive. But Toothless hadn't had the pleasure of hunting for a couple of weeks now. He chased a shrieking Zigarastica all around the room until he finally trapped him in a corner of the ceiling and closed his jaws around him. Toothless hovered just out of reach, one cheek bulging and Zigarastica's furious swinging tail trailing out of his mouth. Spit him out, howled Hiccup, frantically jumping up and trying to grab Toothless by the tail. I mean it, Toothless. This is not a game. Our lives depend on that nanodragon. Toothless shot him a naughty look and dodged to the other side of the room. The others joined in the chase, leaping after Toothless as he swooped from one side of the ceiling to the other, squealing with delight. Kamikaze climbed onto Fishleg's shoulders, while Hiccup got on a chair and tried to sweep Toothless in her direction with a broom. Unfortunately, Hiccup missed, and the brush cannoned into Kamikaze and Fishlegs, and then knocked over the chair Hiccup was standing on, and they all landed it in a heap on the floor. Toothless somersaulted across the ceiling in his glee. He laughed so hard he nearly dropped Zigarastica. He hadn't had so much fun in ages. Okay, said Hiccup under his breath to the other two. I've got a new tactic here. We don't have time for this nonsense. Just ignore Toothless and everybody gather round me while I tell you our plan. Oh, I get it, said Fishlegs. Fishlegs and Kamikaze got into a huddle around Hiccup, who started whispering loudly. Toothless remained on the ceiling, making rude raspberry noises, and nobody paid him any attention. Eventually, Toothless's curiosity got the better of him, and he flapped down to see if he could hear what was being said, and Kamikaze leaped out of the huddle and grabbed him. Ha! Said Hiccup triumphantly, looking sternly down on the struggling little dragon. Now, Toothless, drop it. Toothless crossed his eyes and made a gulping noise with his throat as if he was swallowing. Ah, no, screamed Hiccup. Toothless spat Zigarastica onto the floor. Only joking, he said. Zigarastica was furious. Hiccup put him carefully on the table, and for 5 minutes he refused to say anything at all, concentrating on shaking out his wings and removing Toothless's saliva. I'm so sorry about Toothless, Your Highness, said Hiccup, thinking that a little flattery might be necessary. Zigarastica's voice was icy. If I don't owe you a favour, oh boy with legs like a heron, he spat, that dragon would be history. Toothless laughed scornfully. What are you going to do, tough guy? Tickle Toothless to death? Shut up, Toothless, said Hiccup. Thank you for coming, Zigarastica, and for looking so very, very handsome as well, if I may say so. You have such kingly legs. Zigarastica looked slightly less cross. He admired his own royal knees with approval. And your wings, they're the finest I've ever seen. I'll explain what I would like your highness to do. Hiccup told the nanodragon his cunning but truly desperate plan. The nanodragon was silent for a moment. That, he said at last, is a truly terrible plan. Told you, said Toothless. Hiccup's plans are always terrible. You're still alive, aren't you? Retorted Hiccup. Also, said the nanodragon, that is actually 2 favours, and I have offered you only 1. Think how cross, though, the fat consul will be, pleaded Hiccup. The nanodragon thought about that. He shook out his black and red spotty wings, and Hiccup began to see the suggestion of a smile on his tiny face. Okay, said Zigarastica. I'll do it. Don't blame me if it fails, and by the way, oh boy with a nose like a small potato, your friends are even uglier than you are. Where did you find these people? Never in my life have I seen anybody who looks so much like a lemon sole. He pointed rudely at fish legs with one wing. A lemon sole is a type of fish. And with that, the little nanodragon gave a self-important wriggle of his behind and flew out the window. Did he agree to carry out your plan? Asked Kamikaze. Hiccup nodded, trying to look confident to keep everybody's hopes up. The thing is, I don't think in this kind of weather they'll be able to hold those games tomorrow anyway. I've seen the arena from the window and it's knee-deep in water. The ground is far too wet and slippery for gladiatorial combat. With any luck, the rain will make them cancel the whole thing. End of part 1.